Good morning, folks. Good morning, Paul. Um, we're together to do another ponder, and this one really intrigues me. Paul's going to talk about time, and I wonder where he's heading down a time tunnel or what he's up to. But I'll shut up and let him tell us.
I had visions there, Peter, of heading down Alice's rabbit hole, but and potentially this topic could occupy a lot of time. Um, this is not so much about time management, Peter. What I want to do is to talk about prioritizing time and the importance of prioritizing time.
Yes, okay. Well, that really is important. We sometimes find that um, we give a busy man a job and he'll get the job done, and that's because we've organised ourselves
Uh,
to we used to, Paul, when we had Canberra Business Advisory Service. Probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but we had that business and we had a calendar where we split the week up into what we did during certain time periods. And that was really quite effective. So messages were taken at one part of so that we could return those calls so it didn't interrupt our own workflow. We had time set aside for interviewing clients. We had time set aside for management meetings, etc., etc. So a calendar was organised and pretty much the same week after week, but it did organise our time.
mm. Yeah, so there's actually embedded in what you said there, Peter. There are some good time management types of techniques. I do want to just extend the discussion a little to prioritizing time. Something that I think is true is that business owners have never been so time compressed. And one of the drivers to that is the difficulty finding people. And so they find themselves actually doing even more hours than they ever have, which makes time precious. And so I'm going to tease out a little bit of a point here, and that is that last time I looked, there's only 168 hours in a week. But the funny thing is, Peter, is that some people actually use the hours better than others. Some people get more out of the hours, and I think it's because they are able to prioritize their time on things that are actually going to make a difference in their business.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Uh, One example is getting it's less now, thankfully. Emails have become the bigger problem, but receiving mail in the past, including catalogues and things that we keep it anyway. I think we get mail, you throw out what you can. I had an inbox and then I had a further in file. So things that I didn't need to handle. So I only handled the paper once. So I put it in the further in file, which was just punching it and putting it in a file. And then when that folder got full and I hadn't had to recall or go back to
Mm.
that, I just threw out most of it and just kept the last week or so of that folder.
You
Um,
you you
yeah,
raise a really good point there, and that's where I'm leading, Peter. Is that folk that have read Stephen Covey's work will be aware that he actually looks at the types of actions that you might take in business and the using of time, and he actually looks at those things that are urgent or not so urgent, things that are important or not so important. So there's stuff that in business that can just eat up time wasters. But one of the
yes,
things that I think is crucial here is the concept that it's all too easy to get enmeshed in those things that are urgent. And so people certainly get involved in urgent things that are important. They get involved in urgent things that are not so important, and consume the vast majority of their time. Now, if you remember Covey, one of his four quadrants was those things that are important but not urgent. And Covey makes the point that it is in that space where you do your planning, where you do your working on the business stuff, that's actually where you make the big gains in business. So I've got a little bit of a challenge. I call it the 1 month challenge, the Paul 1 month challenge. And it
Right.
basically is, if you have any doubts about how you're prioritizing time, not such a bad idea is to actually keep a diary. You could even go down to the extent of actually looking at in 10-minute increments, or but basically, I'm talking about doing a serious exercise of how you are spending your time in your business. My
Yeah.
guess is there'll be stuff that goes in the not urgent, not important, the time wasters. I'll bet you there's a heap of stuff that's important and urgent. And yes, I agree, those things need to be done. And also, too, there will be some stuff in there that appears urgent, but is not that important, and probably is wasting time as well. Here's the acid thing, though, Peter. My experience is that many business owners are spending very little, if any, time working on those things that are important but not urgent. And
Yep.
so, my theme here, Peter, is a simple one, and that is that people like you and I talk about the importance of working on the business, but it actually gets back to, are they actually prioritizing their time? You brought up the concept of looking at time blocks, allowing yourself the opportunity to work on your business. My comment to you is, I couldn't think of a better strategy, actually. Just allocating some time in your diary where you're actually genuinely working on the business as opposed to working in the business. So
Yep.
that's my message today, Peter. A simple one, I think, but the theme here is just the importance of prioritizing your time.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And for those watching, we can be contacted for further information on the card at the end of this presentation. And we've only really just touched on this subject too. There's far more, and I'll bite my tongue without adding to what Paul has already eloquently given us today. Thanks, Paul, and look forward to pondering again.
Oh, an absolute pleasure, Peter. And if folk have actually, if you've got some value from today's session, yeah, certainly follow through. But one of the ways you can do that is just to subscribe. So thank you very much.
Yeah, subscribe so you don't miss one of our pondering sessions. Thank you again, Paul.